Welcome everybody. We hope you all had a great lunch. We're here to talk to you about Backdrop CMS for small-sized business and nonprofits, as it says here.
Backdrop is a fork of the Drupal project. You probably all know that already since you're in this room. We're technically a fork of really early Drupal 8, but it was before it started changing too much and being very different from Drupal 7. So it's okay to think of it as a fork of Drupal 7. We're very similar in terms of how the code is from what Drupal 7 looks like today. I think in the Drupal world, something we're guilty of a lot of the time is we know and love Drupal, and anyone comes to us with a problem, and we want to solve the problem with Drupal. And sometimes they come to us demanding Drupal, and we agree to solve the problem in Drupal, when sometimes it's important to stop and take a step back and say, is Drupal really going to be best for this project? And sometimes there are restraints that make you have to use Drupal, even if it may not be. But we're hoping to kind of say, okay, if you did get to look at a project and say, what's the right tool for that job? We're hoping Backdrop will be another tool in your toolbox that you can evaluate for that thing. There are a whole bunch of great new software frameworks and platforms and services out there that can help build websites today. There weren't a long time ago. We know there's a lot of competition. How many people here have used Squarespace? Okay, so it's not a CMS, right? But there are a lot of really compelling reasons why people could use Squarespace. It's really affordable, it's really fast, it's really beautiful, and there's a lot of stuff that I think Drupal and other open source communities can learn about what Squarespace is doing right. Does anyone here have WordPress sites that they own, operate, or manage? WordPress is another great example of like maybe not being the most comprehensive software, but solving a particular problem really, really well. And I think that a lot of times in Drupal we build sites that could have been done just as well, maybe better, maybe more affordably in WordPress. We all know and love Drupal. We're hoping Backdrop will sit somewhere between the sites that fit really well for WordPress and the sites that fit really well for Drupal 8. There's obviously going to be a lot of overlap. There's already overlap between Drupal and WordPress, and trying to squeeze in the middle means we're going to be overlapping on both sides. But it is very similar, and we're going to show you a little bit about what it's like today, and hopefully be able to make those decisions about which tool is best for the job in the future. Nate and I up here are founders of Backdrop. We started working on this a little more than 3 years ago. I'm the project lead, which means I'm in charge of people, although in the open source community, being in charge of them is kind of loose. I talk to people a lot. Nate is a technical lead, which means he's in charge of the code. So right now he's helping guide the direction of where Backdrop's code is going.
And this is in flipped order in case. I'm Nate. She's Jenn.
Nate and I built a lot of Drupal websites. We built a lot of sites before we got to the point where we created Backdrop. We've solved a lot of problems for really big companies that have really hard problems, as well as smaller companies, easier problems, and hopefully we have a lot of experience.
We're also trainers. Together, Jenn and I both had an early history in Drupal, spreading knowledge about Drupal and how to use it. Together, we've taught over 1,500 students in-person trainings, online training videos. I'm featured in a lot of the Drupalize Me videos, and before Drupalize Me, I had DVDs of training videos. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we may have been the only one on the market with that particular media. Back then, that was like, before streaming video was a common thing. So spreading the Drupal knowledge everywhere, far and wide. But the overall message about this slide is that we learned and continue to find the pain points that people experience when they are learning Drupal. Every time you teach somebody about something, you really learn it. and you really find out what people's problems are, because you don't learn it just once, you learn it every time you teach somebody. And it made it so that we could identify and find like these certain areas that just time after time after time, we still have many of the same problems in Drupal today as we did 7-8 years ago. And we're hoping through Backdrop we can help with this. We're also core developers, so you've got some experienced hands in this project for certain. In Drupal 6, I wrote the original Ajax framework. Back then it was called the AHA framework. The file and image modules in Drupal 7. I'm actually still a maintainer for Drupal 7 for file and image modules. And I wrote the dialog system that's in Drupal 8 and was the primary proponent for CK Editor in Drupal 8.
I'm a little newer to Drupal development. I first started getting involved in really early Drupal 7, where I felt like I found a bug. What do you mean? There's a bug in Drupal. This is crazy. So then I fixed it, and I was like, oh, that's all you have to do to be a core developer, apparently. And then I was like, wait, you can just change Drupal? That's amazing. And so then I started getting really involved in usability, particularly issues that came up in training where people were having a hard time using the software. It's like, we can fix these things. We're going to do studies. We're going to find out what the biggest problems are. We're going to fix all those things. We'll fix everything. It's going to be great. And in really early Drupal 8, I organized one of the first meetings for rewriting the theme layer in Twig, and that was mostly also coming from the perspective of training, where people were finding Drupal being too hard to learn. There were too many concepts, there were too many layers, and we needed to make it more accessible to more people. And so I ended up accidentally running that initiative for about 2 years, talking to people and getting them to do a bunch of really fantastic work that was successful, and I think made Drupal a better product. We're also big community advocates. As many of you may already know, I've been in charge of Badcamp since a good long number of years until recently. But we also travel around the country and around the world, and we talk to people who have Drupal sites and Drupal projects everywhere. And I think that our perspectives are not unique to the two of us or the people that are working on Backdrop, but it is a concern that has been growing in the Drupal community for a long time about Drupal being hard to learn and expensive and all the things that we're concerned about. And so we were trying to create a product that we think will benefit others. This is not just our own passion, although it is that as well.
But the reason for all of this lengthy introduction is basically to let you guys know that we love Drupal, and most everybody in our community is a part of the Drupal community and finds an equal passion for the Drupal project. It's because we love Drupal that we made Backdrop in the first place. We know that it's a really trusted tool, and we've been using it for a long time. And we love the platform, and that's why we are creating Backdrop. It's the same basic software, but with some seriously different philosophical and audience goals. So let's talk about the way Backdrop itself is run. Backdrop, we have, instead of a benevolent dictator for life, the BDFL model, we're using a project management committee, or PMC for short. This is a model that the Apache project uses for not just the web server, but for all of the Apache projects. Cordova, Solr, Lucene, OpenOffice. Apache actually has dozens of child projects, as well as an overall foundation that manages the handling of all of these projects. And it's a model that is really cool, and is something that we'll talk about, and talk about how that differs from Drupal.
So our project management committee is made up of a lot of faces that you see here in this room. Nate and I are both currently on it today, but so is Jack and Wes and Mike, who are right here.
Yeah.
We also have Clonos, who is in Australia right now, so very hard to attend this session. But we wanted to make sure that Backdrop was not being guided just by the coders who wanted specific features out of it, or the founders, Nate and I, who have an original vision, but a community of people that represents the entire community that is going to be using Backdrop. So that means we need to have people on the PMC who are focused in business, like Jack, and understand what it means to try and sell a website running this software to someone. We need to have people like Gregory, who is a front-end site builder, not a developer, and take his experience into account and say, what is it like to be using this thing from a non-developer perspective? We've got Wes representing the front-end community, making sure that we get our CSS class names right, or whatever it is that we don't necessarily think about on a daily basis. And we want to also say, not only are the constituents we have represented here based on what people do, but we want it also to reflect where they are in the world, who they are, what things that are important to them. So if we start getting a huge user base in Latin America, we need to have representatives on the committee that are making sure that their needs are also expressed in that too. So we're trying to make sure that the leadership accurately represents the membership that it's responsible for.
So what does the PMC do? Provides a mechanism. We have a defined conflict resolution documentation and what should happen in the event of a conflict in the community, whether that's conflict over the direction that we should take the project or a conflict between individuals. The PMC basically is responsible for helping moderate that. Setting the overall direction of the project and ensuring that each change follows the project's philosophy. And if it turns out that we're looking at a particular change and it looks really compelling, but it doesn't follow our philosophy, then we can't just say, well, this is an exception. The official route that we would need to take is we would need to change the philosophy to say, okay, this feature, which doesn't match our philosophy, we need to change the philosophy in order to publicly and explicitly state what this project is and where we are going.
Yeah. And that comes from Drupal and a little bit, like Nate and I were involved in the Drupal community for 10 years, and there's a philosophy page that we read and we thought we understood. But after being involved in how decisions are actually made, it started to seem like the philosophy page was significantly out of date. And I think it was that kind of thing where it's like, if we knew what the philosophy was originally, there would have been less surprise when we realized, once we get really deep in, that we're not doing exactly what we thought we were here to do.
Yeah, Emma Jane Westby gave a great talk on this at DrupalCon about 2 years ago, called The Danger of Having No Why, and basically expressing how the Drupal project, it kind of is very ephemeral about what it's trying to accomplish and who it's trying to build things for. With that, there are certain problems that can come up because things like the policy towards backwards compatibility can suddenly be dropped in the middle of a release cycle, and even to this day, there's no documentation about what the real backwards compatibility policy is between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. It's just kind of, well, that just kind of happened. It was a technical decision, and we didn't have anything that said, well, we actually did have something that said the old policy, but then it was just kind of discarded. Yeah.
I want to speak for a second to why we're talking about just the structure and everything so much. So the structure and the philosophy that's coming next. When Nate said before, folks who are involved in this project love Drupal, there's clearly a reason why we are forking it. So the structure and the philosophy, we hope, will really influence how the whole project goes and how the product turns out as a result. Just to kind of connect those dots and explain there's a consensus-based decision-making model on the PMC, and as a PMC member, it's pretty neat to be reminded all the time that I'm not supposed to guide it in terms of what I want out of the project personally. I'm guiding it based on the philosophy that we're going to show next. And it's I'm charged to look at what we're thinking about doing, look at our philosophy, look at the communities we're trying to serve and all these different constituencies represented, and figure out, does this make sense on that level? Not on the level of what I would enjoy, what I want for my personal sites, or for clients who don't really fit into the model. Even if they're my clients, if they don't fit into who we're serving, it's not how I'm going to turn the project, because there's that underpinning, and the structure helps make sure that actually happens.
Yes, well said. So, what are the principles of Backdrop? You can check them out online, backdropcms.org/philosophy. If you don't want to write them down here. But the first one of these is that backwards compatibility is important. It's not necessarily that it's, we're ensuring 100% backwards compatibility or anything like that. We're just saying that we need to be aware of it because backwards compatibility has a huge impact on the long-term maintenance of a site and the education that you need to have in order to use the software. And backwards compatibility eases all of those problems. And it's probably, it's number one because it's the biggest thing that we have that separates us philosophically from Drupal.
That's why we're here.
Go ahead.
So number two is writing code for the majority. This is making sure that Backdrop's code remains as accessible to as many people as possible. There are a lot of patterns in web development or in software development where people like to adopt the latest and greatest and newest things. Developers in particular love the latest and greatest and newest things. But that is not necessarily important to some person who just has a website that they need to maintain. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the code is simple, not very abstract, uses basic concepts so that anyone can open up a file and read it top to bottom, whether they're educated in computer science or not. They should still be able to get in there, see the code, and understand what's happening. That'll open the door to more contributors. It will help. If we can get more eyes on the code, we'll make better code. And it'll make things get done faster for people if they can actually open up, see, understand what's going on. The next one is including features for the majority. So similar to writing code for the majority, we want to make sure that the tools that are in Backdraft are tools that apply to the majority of sites that are running them. We don't want to put in edge case features that will make something crazy possible if it is going to end up costing 99% of people who are using the software some price to get that 1% of the person and 1% of the sites that feature. A great example of this is in Backdraft, the first version, we dropped support for any database that is not MySQL. And there's less than 1% of Drupal sites that run databases that aren't MySQL, but there's a huge performance impact and learning curve associated with the database abstraction layer that's in Drupal. And so we're like, well, can we take it out? Turns out we can't take it out because that's a lot of change, no backwards compatibility there. But if we remove the support for other database types, we can increase performance by writing MySQL-specific optimizations. There's still a huge win there in terms of some of our other principles that we'll talk about in a minute. The next one, ensuring that Backdraft can be extended. Drupal is a fantastic product, but what makes it work for most of the people who use it are the fact that there are a ton of contributed modules that you can drop in and get to do what you want. And if there's not, you can write your own, because there's a fantastic set of APIs that make Drupal really flexible. We can't lose that in Backdraft, or we won't be nearly as successful. If that's what makes Drupal great, that's what's going to make Backdraft great too. And meeting low system requirements, this is our commitment to decrease performance in Backdraft. So we want to make sure that you can run a Backdraft site on shared hosting. It's something that you used to be able to do with Drupal back in the day, and over time, the requirements for Drupal sites have just gone up and up. Some of that has to do with the code, some of that has to do with the complexity of the things people are building with it. But we're trying to say, in order for us to be successful, we have to be able to put this thing anywhere. So that means we need to decrease the requirements in terms of what you need to run the software. And the last one used to set us apart from Drupal, but Drupal's now adopted a release schedule as well. But we want to make sure that Backdraft comes out on time at regular intervals so people can schedule developer hours and budget towards keeping their website up to date. And that's something that has also been really helpful as core developers, so we know when we need to put aside time in our schedule to work on getting Backdraft ready to be released. And the last one, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just, I thought that was the last one, so I was going to say I saw a hand, but first you should do the last one.
So the last one, just quick and simple. Drupal's free and open source. We're here because we could fork it. That's obviously something that's really important to us as well. We want Backdraft to remain free and open source as well.
So I'm curious about the context of backwards compatibility, because Drupal 6 to 7 and again 7 to 8, I mean, one more than the other. There was backwards compatibility for code, and there was backwards compatibility, right, none 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Backwards compatibility for architecture, a little bit more from 7 to 8. But where there wasn't, whereas the biggest hole, and I'm amazed still that it just seems to be forgotten overall in Drupal, is that content is king. And content drives why people use Drupal, and it also drives why companies with these $100,000 and up dollar sites, what's important to them, and it's the thing that you find least able to migrate from one major release to the next.
So, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I was just going to say that Drupal has always promised an upgrade path for your data, which is usually your content. So from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, not 7 to 8, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, you hook up your database to a new site and you have a button to push and it'll crank through. That's true for core, Crintrib, not so much. But Drupal has never promised backwards compatibility for your code. Like, that's why you have to throw out all your old modules and put in new ones. And there has, for a long time, been like kind of a lot of overlap between those two versions. So you're like, okay, I'll take my old code and I'll drop it in and then I'll change it and fix it. Until the latest version of Drupal, where now that is no longer possible, you have to do a rewrite. Backdraft offers the same guarantee on updating your content from version to version. We're also trying to make a firmer guarantee about your code. So right now there's about 80% code overlap between Drupal 7 and Backdraft. we would love to keep it that much or more in future versions going forward. We're currently debating how we're going to handle, like if you can drop in a Backdrop 1 module on Backdrop 2, we've got to make a PMC decision about that. But we are aware that this is a big issue, and with backwards compatibility being our #1 principle, we've got to find a better way to solve it.
Yeah.
So it's a hard problem because we're starting with Drupal, but it's our #1 priority. So we will figure out some way to make it easier, if not completely solved.
Yeah, and it's not a part of our demo, but we have, like, just yesterday, day before yesterday, did a live upgrade from Drupal 7 with everything, like reviews, blocks, all of your content, custom fields, everything. Backdrop acts as though it's the next version of Drupal. You pointed at a copy of your Drupal 7 database, hit update, and it updates everything that's in core, including a massive number of contrib modules from Drupal 7, redirect, views, email, link, date, path auto, transliteration, all of these modules that are now in core, all of the configuration and content from those modules gets upgraded into Backdrop core in a matter of seconds.
You said core, but what about e-commerce?
Yeah, e-commerce, it's a problem that we haven't yet extensively solved.
We have a couple of e-commerce solutions for Backdrop already, but they are small, lightweight ones. They're not big ones like Drupal Commerce. Ryan Starama, the author of Drupal Commerce, is working on a Backdrop-specific product called Backshop. It is a lighter weight version of Drupal Commerce, more geared towards the target audience of Backdrop than the target audience of Drupal. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that evolves, but it won't be out at least until we get the next version of Backdrop out, because he's waiting on us to fix something so that he can have his.
Yeah, but rather funny, like he looked at our philosophy and said, Drupal Commerce doesn't really fit with this, like, or with the audience of Backdrop, because Drupal Commerce is a really complex, very flexible but crazy system, and that he's trying to make something that fits more in line with the audience of Backdrop.
8% use case.
Yeah.
E-commerce solution. We
So-
will have time for more questions at the end. I'd like to get through them because we have a lot of slides, but it's particularly remember ones relating to philosophy, because that is the thing that we're here for.
Yeah. So if we distill all of this, all of our philosophy, we come down into the Backdrop mission statement, which is here on the screen. Backdrop CMS enables people, keyword, to build highly customized websites affordably through collaboration and open source software. And the one word that we like to call out is affordably, and because Drupal, although it's free, it is very expensive, especially when you compare yourselves to other platforms like WordPress. I heard at our summit that WordPress budget for a site is like $1,000 per year, and Drupal is like 10, 20, 30 times that, and that there's all of this finagling that the speaker had to do, that they had like 20 WordPress websites and one Drupal website, and he just aggregates together. Well, he aggregates together all of the WordPress websites and lumps them up in his budget reports as WordPress costs, so that it doesn't look as bad when it compares next to the Drupal costs. But there's only one Drupal website and 6 WordPress ones. Yeah. So how can we make web development affordable? There's reasons why WordPress is less expensive than running a Drupal website. And so we can emulate that, and we can do some things to make the cost of owning websites more affordable. One of them, increase the out-of-box functionality. Backdrop includes lots and lots of functionality. We'll get to it in the demo, actually, and you'll just get to see it.
So does Drupal 8, to be fair, but we wanted to make sure that we included almost all the same features as Drupal 8 in Backdrop.
Yeah, we surpassed in many areas too. So make maintenance easier. Making maintenance easier, we can do that through making, actually backwards compatibility is a large part of that, that if things are not changing so quickly, then they're easier to maintain. Simplifying the architecture. So simplifying the architecture makes it so that you need less specialized training in order to maintain it, which means that the developers basically can be less specialized, less expensive. Always providing an upgrade path. That's upgradeability is a huge part of why Backdrop exists, and our ability to upgrade from Drupal 7 into Backdrop very quickly is a key part of the value proposition that we're providing. Keep security updates quick and easy. we're trying, well, right now we have things like Pantheon Upstream that can help if you're already using that platform to get security updates quickly and easily. But we're also looking at automated security updates, which I know some people are like, but it is something that WordPress has done, and the WordPress community feels very confident about the fact that their website is going to take care of itself, and if you don't look at it for a year, it's going to be okay. And consider the cost of each change, because every time we change something, that's something that everybody needs to learn all over again. And that makes it easier on existing developer, and when it comes time to accommodate for the changes, it's less change, and it makes it so you can do things more quickly. Like upgrading, you do need to make backdrop versions of modules, but upgrading or reporting a module to backdrop is a thing that takes a matter of hours rather than a matter of weeks or months or longer. Yeah, and more ideas. We're always looking at how can we increase the affordability, and as we come across things that when we have key decisions, we always come back to this. Will it make it more affordable? Because if we are not saving people time, you shouldn't be using the software. Like, if the software is causing you to spend more time and more money, then the value proposition just isn't there. So it all comes down to making a tool that saves you the most amount of time.
I actually want to speak a little bit, I know we have mentioned WordPress very often, and there's a big reason for that. I'm going to share my cute story. It's very cute. My partner is a web developer, and she's a WordPress developer, and she works at almost the exact same kind of company as me, a small worker cooperative that works with progressive nonprofit organizations. So both of us are dealing with very, very similar problems, similar clients, and similar budgets. And it increasingly is difficult to justify to my clients not only the initial cost, but the every 5 years or so, the upgrade cost is especially worse. My partner actually, WordPress is also not perfect. I loved Drupal before. I love Backdrop now because it gives me so much power to do sites that do a lot more, like quite easily without writing a whole lot of custom code or without relying on some dodgy plugins that I'm not really familiar with. So those are the shortcomings of WordPress, but it's undeniable that WordPress was very often a better fit for what her cooperative's priorities were, her business's priorities were, and what her clients' priorities were. And so it's always been this thing. It's been very funny, like, as we talk about these two platforms and like the differences and all this stuff, it's been challenging and also very eye-opening, because I think I used to diss WordPress a lot, and she really corrected that. I used to be like, oh, you can't, it's just a blog, this or that. So all of this is to get us to that point where Backdrop, something as powerful as Drupal 7, can be a viable choice for those kind of organizations and for the companies that serve them. I'm hoping that actually allows there to be lots more shops like mine and like Sarah's, my partners, that are small, that are not huge companies, that work with the grassroots, and that can actually build with a powerful tool. Because Drupal, not so accessible for lots of the small shops.
So, Backdrop, we've been talking about it now for 2 years, actually, and when can you use it? It's ready, like, right now.
Yes.
You go out there, build some Backdrop websites. The release history, actually, of Backdrop, we released it nearly 2 years ago, January 15th. And with our scheduled release policy, we release a new version, or new minor release with new features every 4 months. And so we've delivered every one of these releases on schedule, not with all of the features that we might have hoped, because if a feature isn't ready, we just don't include it, and then it just gets bumped to the next release. But you can count on a reliable schedule of when the next version of Backdrop is going to come out. And there's rewards for doing each minor version, because it's like, oh, now redirect is now part of core, and that it's better integrated, and I no longer need that contrib module. And of course, the next version, just like everything else, will be coming out January 1st, 2017.
January 15th. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Just
sorry.
adding these
Oops,
before.
missed a number there. January 15th, sorry.
Code freeze January 1st. All right.
Yeah, you can talk about
So yeah,
contrib.
what about contrib? Like, we talked about how Drupal is fantastic because of all the contributed modules and custom modules you can write for it. Backdrop is only going to be successful with the same. This is a list of the top modules, contributed modules currently used in Drupal today. The ones with the blue check marks, those modules have been included in core and Backdrop. The ones with the green check marks, those have been ported to Contrib. And those with the cog wheels, these are underway. We've got probably both entity reference and media coming in Backdrop 1.6, January 15th. Metatag, something I'm working on porting this week. So hopefully we'll get a longer list here soon if we can get a larger slide. But we are working on the top most important modules already existing and much more. So total modules, themes, and layouts, which is the new top-level concept in Backdrop. We have 321 already. We've been out for 2 years. Most of those have been ported from Drupal. A couple of them are brand new. And these are ones that people are working on GitHub. These are the ones that have been stamped ready for release use today. So we have a bunch that are ready and a ton more work that's currently going on. And then who's using Backdrop, right? That's something we hear a lot as well. We currently have almost 7,000 downloads of Backdrop, 300 and almost 400 people on backdropcms.org, which is pretty good because there's not much to do there yet. More than 75 people have their contributions committed to Backdrop core. That doesn't count Drupal contributors, obviously. It would never be much larger. We've got 57 people who are actively contributing modules, themes, and layouts in our GitHub group. And on the Backdrop website, you can also add your company or organization is looking for Backdrop work. So we currently have 28 shops. A lot of them are Drupal companies that are out there saying, yes, I want to accept Backdrop work. So we do have a growing community of people who are actively seeking projects.
Yeah, and the people that are in this room, probably many of them Drupal developers, you should consider yourself a Backdrop developer. You already know it. And so if you're interested in doing Backdrop work, go and create an organization profile on backdropcms.org.
Oh, yeah. You can also list yourself as if you're just a developer, not an organization, you can say, I'm looking for work, and you'll show up in a developers for hire listing on there too.
Yep. You can get involved with the Backdrop project. We have a very public, open method of communicating. We have Google Hangouts that are live on the air, 1 p.m. Pacific time every Thursday, which is very cool. You can hang out. We have a Gitter channel that is like where we do our chat instead of we're using IRC, but Gitter turned out to be way easier for more people. Integrates with GitHub. It's nice. But these Hangouts are live. They're broadcast onto YouTube as they're happening, so you can watch the meetings as they happen, and it's kind of like it's almost like a podcast, really. It's like, here's what's new in Backdrop.
You can also watch them later too. So if you're not available at 1 p.m. on a Thursday, you can say, oh, what were they working on Backdrop this week? And you can go watch it. You can see us talking about issues that come up, either relating to, PMC has decided to introduce a feature freeze state, or this is what we're working on right now, is trying to sort out problems with referencing entities. If you're curious about getting into how the sausages are made, that's a good place to hop in.
Yeah, and also just to highlight, so the Thursday 1 p.m. PT Hangout, that's like a more development-focused one, although you do get a very good overview of kind of where the project is in general. So it's accessible to non-devs, but it's development-focused. We also have a pretty regular bi-weekly schedule that alternates an hour before. Every other week it's design or community outreach. So if folks are interested in either of those are also good ways to listen in, plug in, get involved.
Yeah, we tend to have a very good set of developers in our community, and maybe not such a solid base of community outreach experts and or designers. So we try and have these meetings to say, hey, we need help with these things. If you're interested in contributing design work, or you want to write us a newsletter, these are things we need help with in these areas as well, hoping that we can kind of encourage more people with those areas of expertise to get involved and help the project too.
Yeah, marketing volunteers,
oh yeah,
we would love your help.
We don't know anything about marketing.
Let's see. We're running a little long. We only have 10 minutes left in our entire talk, which will
Let's do a quick demo.
seriously shorten our...
Wait, no, we go till 2:15 or 2:30?
2:15.
2:15.
Okay. All right.
So we're going to cruise into the demo. We can meet up afterwards, potentially in the hall, if you guys have questions that we would like to talk about. But to do a demo as best we can in the next 10 minutes, this is what it looks like when you install a new Backdrop website right out of the box. You can see some things that have now differentiated it substantially from Drupal, such as the latest version that just came out a month ago includes a new core theme called Basis. And it's great. We have hero blocks that allow you to edit and put simple splashes at the top of your pages. We're providing sample content now. If I go, more things. Up at the top, you can see that we have what most people call admin menu. We made some improvements. It's responsive
Touch-friendly.
and touch-friendly. So admin menu is one of those things that it's used by, still more than 50% of every Drupal website out there. And it's
Even
like,
though Drupal already comes with a toolbar.
yeah, and if half of your users are removing the toolbar that's in core to put in one that is in contrib because they like it better, that means something. And so we've taken the popular proven solution, improved it moderately to make it touch-friendly and responsive, and this is now finally in the latest version of admin menu as well, but added this great search. So if you need to find a section or an administrative option, you can search, and then it will pop it open in the menu.
Show you where it is.
Yeah, some things that you of course would expect in the modern Drupal version, views being built into core. There's not really much of a surprise here.
Just jump to layouts.
Okay.
'Cause people probably know views don't create.
Okay. Here, can I just create an exit? There we go. Done. All right. The views interface is basically the same. It's integrated with the central dialogue system that we have in core. The real big differentiator, feature-wise, are layouts. Layouts are essentially a port of panels that drives the presentation of all pages in Backdrop. We've decoupled the concept of a theme having regions from the layout. And so now those two things are separate concepts. So just like you have modules and themes in Drupal, we have a new top-level concept called a layout.
And you can change your themes without breaking your site because all of your blocks stay positioned in your layouts regardless of what skin is over the top of them.
Yeah. So if I wanted to add a new landing page, it's funny, how do you do a home page in Drupal? It's like,
Do you want to even me talk? We've only got 3 minutes.
okay, well, let's say I want to add a blog page, and it's a 2-column thing. I can just create a path and just make a path out of the ether, essentially, and then I can add whatever blocks I want. Like I can pull out just a custom block, and you can say if you want it to be reusable or not, but this is just throwing some random content into one sidebar, and then like that recent content block view that I just created, I could throw it in the right-hand sidebar. It's really neat. We have very extensive control over the markup. If you want to change the wrapper div from into something else, or remove the wrapper, very much like
So we took
semantic
this concept from views.
yeah, semantic
where people
views.
really liked being able to control the markup around their views. I personally thought that was a terrible idea, but everyone in the world loved it. So we're like, well, if everyone likes it, we should just give them that same tool elsewhere on their site. So now you can get control over the classes and the wrapper tags on all of your layouts and the blocks within them.
Yep. So now I've created a new page, or a new path at blog, and I can pull it up.
I'm going to suggest real quick, I don't know if it's possible to continue clicking through, but also get some questions before we end, because I really want to see if there are any out there. Is that cool if we kind of do both at the same time? Or do folks want to see more of the demo?
Just to mention that we also have configuration management. I'm not sure if any of you have gone to any sessions for Drupal 8. Drupal 8 has configuration management. It's a huge killer feature. We couldn't have released a competing product without it. We have it too. Ours is implemented slightly differently because our philosophy is different, so how we went about it was slightly different. We have the same thing, save time, no features.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's go to questions.
Let's go right here.
Yeah, just a quick one. The architecture, is it procedural hooks as opposed to
We're
object-oriented?
more object-oriented than Drupal 7, but
Okay.
still an entirely hooked-based system. So all of the things you know about Drupal 7 about hooks are valid, but things like nodes are real objects.
And there's actually probably more hooks because we don't have CTools plugins, and we use hooks to register
But it's info hooks. It's like
Yeah,
two
info.
hooks. There's the actions and info, and that's kind of it. So fewer concepts, but same general architecture.
Cool. Can we go there and then here?
Trying to decide which one of my questions.
Uh,
So, your relationship with Drupal 8, you looked at Drupal 8 for inspiration. What, are you going to lockstep or always going to be somehow in relation to what Drupal's going to do? Or are you going in a completely new direction?
It's completely different. I mean, so we forked because we know we're going to be headed in a different direction. If we were going to be doing parallel, that would be a little weird, like, because we're going somewhere. We have a completely different philosophy. We're going to have a different user base. Like, we're focused on small, not medium businesses, no enterprise sites. They're very focused on enterprise. So it doesn't make sense for the two things to have the same goals long term.
Yeah,
We wanted to make sure that we delivered the same features initially so that people didn't feel like, oh, I can't do that in Backdrop. It's like, you can, we can do everything they can do. It's just going to be different. So just trying to figure out like how to decide what platform to use. It wouldn't be like, oh, I can't have that feature. It's like, you can have that feature. It'll just be the way you did it in Drupal 7, not the way it's done in Drupal.
Yeah.
For the modules that people want to port from Drupal 7 or from Drupal 8, how long is the transfer path from one to this?
Can I take this one, actually? So I'm a relatively new developer. I mostly site build, but I am working on, I think, 2 module ports right now. One is stage file proxy, so it's relatively simple, and that's very, very close to working, so that's exciting. And that took maybe 2 hours to port it from Drupal 7. Porting from Drupal 8 to Backdrop it's not really possible, so you're really thinking about porting from Drupal 7 or the similar like Drupal 6 kind of upgrading something. I'm also working on a more complex one, web forms to the CRM, but that one actually also took only 3 hours to port, so that was kind of exciting. Neither of these are 100% complete, but soon they're going to be contrib and everyone can kick the tires and help me finish up any things that are left. I think I hear people talking about sometimes 10 hours for certain modules. Some modules that are way more complex are going to take a lot longer, and I think y'all can speak to how much those take.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some complicated modules like web form that nobody has been able to take on for Drupal 8 because it's going to be so much work. That was done in weeks for Backdrop. So we're trying to make it as fast and easy to make these changes. We even have a backwards compatibility layer, and so you don't have to make all of the changes if you just want to get it working. You can get it working and throw it up. But the power of using Backdrop are things like our configuration management initiative, and in order to take advantage of that, you want to have it fully ported and leveraging that system.
Has Calendar been ported yet?
It has not, but I'm actually going to swap to here, and then we can come back to you.
Yeah, workbench moderation, we have a need for an approval process even after publication.
It hasn't been ported
I
yet.
don't think it's been ported yet, but we're also looking at how WordPress handles their moderation stuff, and Workbench is a very comprehensive, complete system. It might be good for us to say that's the Drupal type solution. Let's find a Backdrop type solution and create an upgrade path. So it'll depend whoever needs it first, which approach they want to take. Some people are just like, it's almost done, let's just port it. But yeah, we'll see what the community wants for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we go back to one there, and then we'll come back to you. Excuse me?
Is there Drush?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have Drush support for Backdrop. It's a little interesting because we have to rewrite every Drush command. So we don't have 100% Drush compatibility. I run Drush on Drupal 6, don't tell anyone, Drupal 7, and Backdrop at the same time. We just have a set of commands you drop into Drush, and it'll work on Backdrop as well. If there's commands that you run that we don't support, you can create an issue. One of our core committers is maintaining the Drush project, and I have been so impressed by how fast he gets a pull request ready, and he's like, here, I did what you wanted, please test it for me.
Yeah.
The development there is coming along really fast. He just needs input on what to do next.
I don't know if you had another question, then I'll go here. Okay, thank you.
So you mentioned that your layout concept leveraged panels. So what if I have a site I want to move forward and it extensively uses panels? I didn't see panels up there.
So we don't need a port of panels because we have layouts. It solves exactly the same problem. We took the panels module, the API is exactly the same under the hood, we just rewrote the user interface. If you have a site that's using panels, all of the custom plugins that you wrote for panels can be ported to Backdrop very quickly. There's a couple of changes like that random array at the top of the file is now an info hook. The layout plugin is now just a layout, but it's the same concepts and it'll make a lot of sense to get it there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have an upgrade path because it's slightly different because panels is only responsible for the middle part of the page, and in Backdrop, layouts are responsible for the entire page.
Panels everywhere if you're familiar with that module in Drupal.
Yeah, which actually is, there's so many cool things. You can just remove the header and the footer blocks, and then suddenly you have a no branding page, just like a blank, template to do all of your theming in. It's just really neat.
Yeah, it's kind of a site builder's dream. I recommend it because I just do my site building more quickly. And then that translates to my clients paying less money for their sites, which is a goal for me. So,
Any other questions? I know we're sort of out of time. All right, well, we'll be around for the rest of the day. If you want to meet us in the hallway and chat now, that's totally fine. Yeah.
thanks for joining us. Please get involved. Come talk to us if you see us around, and hope to see you in the issue.
Oh, yeah, if you like dragons, we've got stickers.
Yes. Also, the hoodies are the softest hoodies you will have ever felt. They're really awesome. My partner who does WordPress recently bought one, or yesterday bought one, so let's just say.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.